Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the 2023 Black Mental Health Week, hosted by the Rwandan-Canadian Healing Center in collaboration with CARY Toronto, Beyond the Veil Mission, Umurage Association, and the Ghanaian Association of Ontario. Before we start, the Rwandan-Canadian Healing Center would like to acknowledge the land that we're meeting on. We acknowledge the land we're meeting on as the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and it is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. The Rwandan-Canadian Healing Center acknowledges the enduring presence of Indigenous peoples on the land on which we gather today across Ontario, and we thank the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. These lands are gathering points where age-old ceremonies of celebration and initiation and renewal took place. The Rwandan-Canadian Healing Center is grateful to have the opportunity to work and learn on these lands in a community of sharing. Now, why is it important that we gather here today to discuss mental health as a community? As people of African descent, it is ingrained in us that community and one's well-being are tied together. We have sayings such as "it takes a village," philosophies such as the Ubuntu spirit, "I am because we are." The community is the core that centers us all and provides us with safety and support. One aspect of a viable mental health for me is self-care, but there is no self-care without community. In the words of one of my favorite authors, Bell Hooks, she said, "Whether one loves others or loves themselves depends on a loving environment. Self-love does not flourish in isolation." So that, in other words, means that self-care is deeply tied to community care. So that's the importance of events such as the the Black Mental Health Week. So this is a yearly event that serves to amplify the voices of Black people and to bring awareness to historical and current events that affect our mental health. Our event today is titled "Being True to Oneself, Taking Advantage of Mental Health to Create Wellness in the Community." Our aim is to jointly examine intergenerational trauma, that continental Africans face, and also explore together ways to build bridges between generations and to allow the space for healing and growth for members of continental African descent who live in Canada. So without further ado, I would like to introduce one of the people that are behind this event today, none other than our very own Kizito Musabimana. He is the founder and executive director of the Rwandan-Canadian Healing Center. He founded the Rwandan-Canadian Healing Center in 2018 after overcoming PTSD caused by the 1994 Rwandan genocide against the Tutsis. I would like to welcome Kizito and give him the stage. Take it away, Kizito.
Thank you, Nadia. Really appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody for joining us. And I want to obviously thank everybody who has been a part of this event organizing. Of course, I'd like to thank the City of Toronto, the Taib Community Center, and everyone else who have allowed for us to have these kind of conversations throughout the city right now. This is an event that started on March 6th. It's going to end on March 12th. We have various conversations that are taking place across the city within the Black community about being oneself, being true, being well within the community, within the society, within, of course, the families that we all dwell. So I would like to thank you. I would like to thank our participants, our panelists, and our guests that are joining us this afternoon for taking the time off your afternoon, your busy afternoon, to be with us. And also to recognize that we as a people, especially Black people, especially African, continental African Canadians, we need to take time off also to just really talk and share about our community, our environment, and the mental health within our society, and really ask ourselves, what does it mean to be true to yourself, to be true to oneself, and how do you take advantage of mental health to create wellness within your community? And for me, when I talk about community, it's not just the community without, meaning the community outside of ourselves, but it's also your internal body. How do you be true and well within? And I think Now, obviously, today we're going to hear from various people from different backgrounds. Some are experts in mental health, some are working within mental health, some are working within the community. And the one thing that I want you to take home is, how do I take care of me before I even think about taking care of others? Because sometimes we think of community and you think the community is just what's out there, but the cells, the millions of cells within your body is a community as well. And you need to find out how to take care of that. And so I think for me, obviously, everything I do within the community around mental health is derived from the experiences that I had as a young person growing up, trying to find out a lot of what was happening, really not understanding that if you live through what took place in 1994 through the Rwandan genocide against Tutsis, that's something that can actually affect you, not just in that moment, but can affect you generations later. You know, I remember when I was, so I went to film school and I was busy, ready to be a director and everything. And I was busy doing a story on Romeo Darea. But at that time, I was really struggling. I was struggling with my own trauma. And it's at that moment that it hit me that, oh, wait, I actually needed to find out what was going on with me instead of worrying about Romeo Darea and what he had gone through. But it's because of him that I actually recognized something was wrong with me, that there was something that was external that actually caused me to go through what I was going through, which is obviously the trauma of 1994 genocide against Tutsis in Rwanda. And that's when I started to actually think about me. I took about 3 years to really dig deeper. I did research on our history as a people, both Black, African, Rwandans. I started eating the right food, at least for my body as I was concerned. And from that, I went from having suicidal thoughts to actually living a normal life again. And so I want people to understand that it's something, obviously everybody has different levels of challenges. Some people are just normal and you probably need to improve your mental health. But within whatever space you're in, take that time to ask yourself, how can I improve my mental health? How can I improve my community? How can I improve my community within? So it's with that, I would like to say thank you for joining and for really giving us this afternoon to be with us and to share this moment with you. I would like to also as well introduce you back to our MC, Nadia Icho Muhendo, who is a former vigilance officer and is a current communication and liaison officer at the CARY Toronto. She has facilitated numerous young programs for Rwandan community living in Canada. In addition, she enjoys the art of in the form of dance and poetry as a hobby, and and personal mental health care tools. So, of course, I've always said there is something that I lack as a Rwandan, and through this particular journey that we are all partaking, I'm getting to benefit from various Rwandan community members and the CARY community, CARY group. I've really been glad to be a part of that family as well. So I would like to thank Nadia and everyone else. I know we have also Aaron, I believe Pierrick as well, that are part of CARY Toronto. I would like to thank you all for the work you do in the community, and to you.
Thank you very much, Kizito, for introducing me and for sharing with us your story. Truly, the generation that went through the 1994 genocide against Tutsis and the generation that came after were all affected, not in the same way, but I am glad we have conversations such as these as Rwandans and also with other Africans in order to heal together as a community. So taking it to our first speaker, it is our very own Pierrick Gachinya. He is a bilingual stakeholder engagement and communication specialist with the Canadian Mental Health Association. He is about to shed light on the Bounce Back program, a free government-funded skill-building tool that helps you manage symptoms of anxiety, depression, stress, and worry. And I also like to highlight his work that happened last year for the Black men's mental health, which was also very instrumental. So, Pierrick, take it away.
Thanks so much, Nadia. Thanks for all those nice words and for highlighting Black men's style work. So it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to talk about this, especially at a time like this where we're focusing on Black mental health specifically. And mainly, I want to share with you one of the free resources that are available, because a big thing too when it comes to accessing mental health is sometimes we don't know that there's a lot of free government funded programs that we can use right away. So I'm going to first start by sharing my screen, but you know what? I don't know if it's maybe Kizito. It's not letting me access the screen sharing. So if someone can help me with
just a second.
that
I believe
part.
it's on our end.
Oh, I think it's, yeah, I think I got it now. Perfect. Great. So as they mentioned, my name is Pierre Gachinga, and I work specifically for Canadian Mental Health Association. And I promote a program called Bounce Back. And basically this program, it's completely free, it's government funded, and it's to help you manage symptoms of anxiety, stress, low mood, and worry. Because it's something that we all go through. And also it's something for anybody 15 years and up. So keep that in mind as I talk about it. If you have relatives, siblings, cousins, friends, family members, grandparents, for example, there's no limit to the age as long as it starts at age 15. And it's a reality because we're always facing different challenges. And these are those handful of symptoms are what come with life. So the sooner you can learn how to manage those symptoms and not have them manage you, the better off you'll be. Because also as Black people, we have specific barriers that are even harder and add layers to our mental health challenges, just like discrimination, being a newcomer. We talked about PTSD earlier, and different types of situations like that. So I'll get into that. And to get us started, I just want to take, I guess, just take a consensus on where everybody is when it comes to mental health. So if you can use the chat feature, everybody who's online right now, and just give us your answer, I'm going to give you a multiple choice question. So I want to know from you, what do you think good mental health is? Is good mental health A, the ability to be happy? Is it B, building good relationships? Is it C, coping with life's challenges? D, managing your emotions? Or E, all of the above? So put your answer on what letter you think it is, on what good mental health is. Perfect. I see a lot of answers already. E, all of the above. Excellent. So everyone got it right. Everyone's on the right page. So that's the point of everything that I want to talk about today, that it's just all about balance. It's not one specific thing. So for example, when we talk about the ability to be happy, it doesn't mean just kind of putting your blinders on and pretending to be happy. It's about developing your ability to perceive and experience happiness and having a sense of control. So it's a choice. Same thing with building good relationships. That's a big part of mental health, not just good friendships, but sometimes it's leaving relationships, leaving abusive ones, toxic ones, being more assertive and confident. All that ties together. And same thing with coping with life's challenges. You'll never avoid that. There'll be ups and downs. You'll have to start a new job one day, move to a new city, new unexpected scenarios, even grieving the death of a loved one. It's just about managing those ups and downs. And then the last thing is managing your emotions. So that's the ability to feel and express and manage a range of emotions, including the positive ones that people talk about, you know, like joy, excitement, happiness, but even the negative ones are important too, like sadness, anger, and fear. Those are just as important because emotions in and of themselves are not good or bad. They all give us important information. So just like before, we have to learn how to manage it so it doesn't manage us. It's not about completely eliminating. So that's just to give you a sense of what good mental health is. So we know that part, but now when is it time to get help? What is bad, quote unquote, mental health? So these are things to keep in mind of. And if this is something that you're going through right now, or if you know somebody going through, these are kind of some signs to look out for. So things like feeling sad every day, you can't get out of bed in the morning, can't focus at work, can't do your chores, feeling tired and weak all the time, feeling lost, turning to things like alcohol and drugs to feel better, constantly fighting with your spouse and family member, and even thinking that it would be easier if you didn't live anymore. So those are signs that it's time to look for help. And it's important to know that many people feel this way and you're not alone. So don't feel shame on that part. It's just good to be aware of it so that you know it's time to take that next step. And of course, there's other things that come into play when it comes to barriers for our mental health that could stop us from living a happy life. And two of those I want to quickly talk about is stigma and racial discrimination. So I want to start with stigma, which is basically negative beliefs around mental health. The official definition of stigma is it's basically the idea that somebody is beneath you when it comes to their condition they're going through. So stigma can make people living with a mental illness to leave with a feeling of shame, guilt, or lonely for something that's a lot of times not even their fault, simply because of people's negative beliefs around it. So if you're trying to improve how you feel, and you have somebody calling you weak, or they might think that your negative feelings are your fault, or that you should keep it a secret, then you might actually internalize that and you actually start believing it yourself. That's actually self-stigma. And that's even more dangerous because that could stop you from getting the help that you need to improve your life. And a lot of people with mental health conditions actually report that the stigma is harder to deal with than the actual condition that they're dealing with themselves. So the sooner we could talk about it, the better. We know that in different cultures, in especially African cultures, it's still taboo to talk about mental health. But the quicker we can make it normal, like doing this, a panel event like this, the quicker we can get rid of the negative stereotypes around it. And just a quick example here of an advertisement about stigma. This was about cancer-related stigma. So it said in the advertisement, heart disease, just another excuse for lazy people not to work. So that's kind of strange. And that kind of doesn't make sense because why would heart disease have anything to do with being lazy? People can't control heart disease. So why shame them as if it's their fault? And you can't see, but at the bottom it says, imagine if we treated everyone like we treated people experiencing mental health problems. So imagine if when you experience mental health problems, people just simply say, oh, that's because you're lazy, or that there's just, you're not trying hard enough or something. So it's just another thing to keep in mind, that a lot of things aren't necessarily your fault and that we should kind of change the way we look at mental health conditions. So that's what brings you back to Bounce Back. This is a program that helps you with a guided coach to help solve problems that you can control. Obviously, we can't change racism overnight. There's a lot of systematic barriers, a lot of other things that come to play, but a lot of it is how we react to situations. And this program helps you be aware of your emotions, your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors. And that's already a huge step forward that can make life a lot more manageable. So now I'm going to actually talk about the program of Bounce Back. So to summarize it, like I said in the beginning, it's free, it's self-guided, which means you're literally guided by a coach through the program. That's the guided part. And self, meaning you actually learn how to help yourself and try out these new skills to improve your mental health when you're feeling down. And the good thing too is you can do it from home. You don't have to go to a clinic or a doctor's office. And it's just something that you need access to a telephone. And you get access also with a coach who speaks multiple languages. And for any French-speaking people listening, there are French coaches and workbooks. And more importantly, I want to talk about the type of therapy it's based off. It's based off of something called CBT, if that sounds familiar, cognitive behavioral therapy. And really, it's just to say that it's a type of therapy that helps you understand. If you remember the multiple choice I gave you, it's to help you understand that balance. So how your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviors are all connected, and it helps you kind of break that chain. So it's very practical information. It's not too complex, and it's something you can use right away in your life. So it helps you look at how all those things are behavior and are connected and affect your behavior, and then gives you very specific kind of problem solving practices that make it easier for you to understand. So just some examples on the screen here. We have the type of thoughts that come into play because, like I said, everything is connected. So just your type of thoughts alone affect your behavior, and that affects the way you feel emotionally, and that affects the way you feel physically. So a lot of times it all starts with our thinking. So if you see on the screen, one example is, I don't really feel like seeing anybody these days. That's kind of a negative thought. I feel tired all the time. I don't have the energy to go anywhere. So those are the type of things that we want to alter. Then you positively change the other cycles in it, like how you behave after that, or how you physically feel. So that's CBT in a nutshell. It's also a good introduction for somebody who hasn't done therapy yet. And so Bounce Back works with that foundation, and you could do it in two pathways. You can either do it one way through telephone coaching and workbooks, where you work with a coach on the phone who helps you work through a series of workbooks, or you can watch our video series. So if we start with the workbooks, It's also, by the way, free for both of these scenarios. And the way it works is you receive free workbooks in the mail. That's the workbooks are where you learn those skills, those CPT skills. And you can either get a paper version or just online. And you kind of work through them. You learn the information, and then you take the exercises and you use them in real life, kind of like doing homework, but it's homework for your brain. And then you connect with the coach, ideally in your own language, English, French being the options here, but many languages too. And depending on the coach, they might have extra languages. It just won't be available in the books. So I just don't want to say that before moving forward. But when it comes to your coach, you connect with each other and you get a phone call every few weeks. So like I said, it's self-guided. You're doing kind of homework, but you still have somebody that calls you every few weeks to check up on you and make sure that you're on the right track. And you choose from a series of books from different types of scenarios. And those types of books, we have many subjects. There's 20 long format ones, everything from changing negative thinking to understanding fears and phobias, and youth workbooks too. So we have books just for the youth from 15 to 17 years old, self-esteem related, social media, things that they can actually relate to. Just to say too, the workbooks, they're not overly complex. It's not scientific or too advanced. It's actually written at a grade 4 reading level for all the books, because really the whole point is to make it as easy for you to understand, to apply it right away. They're very practical, straightforward skills. And most people just choose a few to start with, 2 or 3. There's no pressure in this program to do it very fast. The whole thing takes about 3 to 6 months to complete. It's really up to you and how much free time you have. And like I mentioned before, it's free, so it doesn't hurt to try. And I want to talk about the coaches, just to make sure that I get this point across, because it's important to know that the coaches, they're not therapists. They're not like counselors. They're really somebody that's kind of in your corner, like a motivator. So think of them more like coaches. They're like a soccer coach, for example. They're not like on the field running with you. They're more so on the side, keeping you motivated, helping you do work, making sure you're doing the right plays and making sure your form is right, things like that. So that's kind of the way to think about a coach coming in, just so you have that expectation, because at the end of the day, it is self-guided work, but you still have somebody motivating. And even though they're not therapists or counselors, they still have a lot of training that goes into what they do. A lot of them come from different fields, so social work background, psychology in terms of schooling. And they have a lot of training that goes into what they do, like learning how to support different age groups like youth, different cultural backgrounds, people who identify as LGBTQ+. They know how to assess for harm and risk, and they make sure that you're secure and safe on every phone call. And they're supervised by a team of clinical psychologists on a regular basis, and they go through their own training too. So just wanted to put that into play as well. And you get the same coach working with you from beginning to end. So you get that familiarity too with the coach. So now that you know how it works, how do you sign up for Bounce Back? Well, first I have to let you know that Bounce Back, this is actually exciting news. It's now part of a bigger Ontario program, because especially after the pandemic, after just the way things are just getting more and more severe when it comes to people's anxiety and depression, the government wants to supply more CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, to more people. So now Bounce Back is a part of a bigger Ontario program called Ontario Structured Psychotherapy. And it's a stepped care model. So really what you can remember from this is that if you finish the program and you feel like maybe you want to take it a step further, or if we do an assessment and we realize you have maybe more severe symptoms, we can step you up to a different type of program, so that you're not going to be stuck to yourself trying to find another service or have to kind of Google literally, what do I do next? So it's all about making things easier and being a part of a bigger program with even more options and other services. I say that because when you sign up for Bounce Back, it's very simple. You just go on our website, which I'll share after, bouncebackontario.ca. And it's just to let you know, when you're on that referral form, it might bring you to OSP, that bigger Ontario program afterwards. And it'll connect you with your intake team in your specific region. So that's one way to sign up. You can always ask your family doctor too, or nurse practitioner to fill out the form for you. They have direct access, or an allied healthcare professional like a social worker, for example, to fill out the form. And just as a reminder for criteria, you have to be 15 years or older with mild to moderate symptoms of anxiety, depression. So that just means that the symptoms can't be too severe, because this takes a certain amount of concentration and focus to do the program, to read the exercises. It's self-guided, it's self-motivated. It's not to discriminate, it's just to make sure that you're getting the best out of it. So I mentioned, things like PTSD earlier. For this specific program, it might not be as useful. Things like bipolar disorder or active suicidal thoughts currently might not be easy to manage with a program like this, but I still encourage you to try, because there's exceptions to every rule. So for example, one of the rules is it's easier to have somebody who isn't actively abusing drugs and alcohol. But if we do an assessment and we realize that it's only from time to time, and it's only recreational, and it's not getting in the way of your readings, and you're able to still show up on time for the phone calls, then you're still allowed in the program. So it's just to say that it's really all coming down to being able to concentrate and do the skill building materials. And even if you don't have any symptoms at all, it's actually the best time to try it. So even if you're relatively in a good place right now mentally, this is the best time to try products like this, because when challenges do happen, which they will, at least now you'll have a tool belt and actual skills that you know how to use, so that you can put that into practice and be better equipped when those ups and downs do happen in life. So the whole speech, that was for the first pathway, the telephone coaching and workbooks. This second pathway is much more simple. It's our videos. So if you don't feel ready yet to start with a coach, or you just want to get into the bounce back program and see how it works, you can just watch our videos, the bounce back today videos, same type of tips and strategies, but in video form. And there's no form to fill out. You don't have to connect with a family doctor. It's just a bit logging into the link you see on the screen here, which I'll share after, and watch the videos that give the same amount of tips and tools. And you'll see testimonies from people who've actually done the program too. So I think I only have like a few minutes left, but I just wanted to leave with some tips to share. Just something you can keep in mind, even outside of the bounce back program, just to make sure that you're kind of set it up on the right pace after this. So one thing you can do to keep in mind is doing something good or helpful as far as improving your mental health. So little things you could do. So research actually shows us that when you do things for others, it actually strengthens your own mental health. So even things like checking on your neighbor, your parents, your friends, even just seeing how they're doing, or volunteering in your community. We talked about CARY, that's a perfect volunteering opportunity, but other opportunities that come in mind is a great place to get started. So that's something you can do. Another thing is keeping your routine. So that's a big part. Making sure that you have a routine going, that you, for example, wake up at the same time every day, go to bed at the same time every day. It's your natural clock. And when things are stressful in our lives, when we're in the middle of work or whatever situation, it's funny that some of those basic things go out the window, and we forget about just the idea of a basic routine, or all of a sudden we start skipping breakfast and we realize why we're extra stressed. So that's something to keep in mind. Other thing, very simple, but again, we forget to do these things when times are hard, and that's doing things you enjoy. So as simple as watching, your favorite soccer game, reading your favorite book on a weekend, and then getting some fresh air. We're getting closer and closer to spring, so it's a lot easier now. I can't speak for this morning and last night. I know we had a snowstorm, but as times get better, definitely take advantage and go outside for a walk, go for a run, go play your favorite sport. Exercise is still completely underrated when it comes to improving your mental health. And then staying connected with your family and friends. So that's very important too. Ideally in person, but if you can online, I know everybody here probably uses WhatsApp. Keep using those. That goes a long way, even if it's just a quick phone call on a regular basis. And ultimately, if all those things are being done, you've done all those 5 things, and you still feel low, you still feel sad for longer periods of time, and you have that feeling stopping you from just functioning normally in life, you can sign up for the Bounce Back program. So consider that. Talk to your family doctor, or just Google it and go on our website and sign up from there. So that's it for me. I just want to let everyone know you have the power to change how you feel. Even when things seem uncontrollable and out of reach, there's always something you can control. That's the whole point. You can change how you think, you can change how you behave, and then the rest will be better from there. So that's our website, bouncebackontario.ca, and our phone number. And I don't know if we're sending emails afterwards, but that's another support that I would share with you called Connects Ontario. If you find the bounce back isn't right for you, there's other places that you can go that can connect you with other free mental health services. So thank you everyone. Thank you for inviting me on this panelist. And I think we're leaving questions for later on. It might be wrong, but either way, I'm still here, and I really appreciate everybody tuning in today. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Pierrick, for sharing these resources and for giving us these tips that we can use. There is a myth that in order to maintain one's mental health, it is expensive, it takes a lot of money, but the resources are all around us. And when you need help, I hope that you can take advantage of some of the free and state-sponsored resources. I'd like to thank you very much, Pierrick, once again. This very next segment. Hello, can you hear me?
Sorry, I think that was someone who forgot to turn off their mic.
All right. Everybody, please remember to turn off your mics. Thank you. I was about to introduce the next segment. It is very important to us, before I introduce the speakers, this segment is important to us because as a community, we aim to build bridges between our generations, because healing cannot happen without young and the elder people getting together to learn from each other, to grow and heal as a community. Therefore, I want to introduce our next segment, the Rwandan Community Roundtable, themed Be Yourself in a Multi-Generational Society. Our moderator is none other than Dorian Kundwa. She is former Miss Rwanda 2015. She currently serves as the Vice President and Education Program Coordinator at the IRITE. She spearheads numerous initiatives, including the Rwanda Youth Convention in 2017, the Israel-Rwanda Biodiversity Pilot Program, and the 2019 Rwanda Youth Connect Convention in Italy. Dorian is also pursuing a bachelor's degree in health sciences, which demonstrates her commitment to promoting health and well-being. Welcome, Dorian. And I'd like to introduce the speakers on her panel. First is Dan Rutembesa. He has been in Canada for over 30 years and has worked with refugees and homeless people in various capacities and various organizations. He is married with 2 children born here in Toronto, and he is the Senior Director of Shelter and Housing at Sojourn House. So thank you for being with us, Dan, and welcome to the panel. Next is Aaron Zigabe. He is a Rwandan patriot raised in Burundi due to the Rwandan genocide against Tutsis in 1959. He works in Toronto as a technical business analyst and volunteers as the Vice President for CARY Toronto while actively engaging with his community. Thank you for being here, Aaron, and welcome to the panel. Last but not least is Madame Domine Rutaisire. She has a Bachelor of Social Work degree from the University of Windsor and a Master of Social Work degree from Wayne State University in Michigan. She is currently working with newcomers, refugee survivors of war, torture, genocide, and crimes against humanity as a mental health counselor. Welcome to the panel. Dorian, you can take it away.
Thank you so much, Nadia. Thank you, everyone. I think we missed one person, which is Pierrick, who's going to join us to the panel as well. Yeah, but I think since he just spoke, many of us already know his expertise. So for the next 25 minutes, we're going to be discussing a very important topic, like Nadia mentioned, and we are blessed to have people from different walks of life, people from different generations. So the topic will be yourself how to be ourselves in a multi-generational society. So I'll start the conversation with Mr. Dan. In your experience of working as the first point of contact with many people moving to Canada for various reasons and from different backgrounds, can you share with us your views about the traditional influence of intergenerational relationships of African descent communities and how these factors might affect the transition process for immigrants in Canada?
How is everybody doing? The traditional intergenerational relationship actually is and has been a contract between different generations, a contract that You take care of me when I'm young, and then I take care of you when you are old. And there is a Kinyarwanda saying that urukwavu rukuze rwonka abana, which is a rabbit will be fed by the young ones when it gets old. But in our, so there is a reciprocal solidarity between generations, where you help today and tomorrow they will help you. Now, unfortunately, those it worked very well when we are in a traditional setup where people lived next to each other, where you knew your aunts and uncles and everybody around you. And then came the times of colonization where things fell apart, particularly for Rwandan people from 1959 to 1994. We had our relatives, some who didn't lose their relatives, lost them in different countries. So the intergenerational, the bond that held us as a people was no longer there, because your uncle was in Uganda, your aunt was in Burundi, the other person was in Congo, and the other person was in Belgium. So what used to bond us together, we lost it. I'm just saying those who stayed alive, because we lost some of our other relatives too. So they also for all Africans, the economic and social political differences that came after colonization also displaced our communities. We had a lot of physical distances that came between us. Then if you have a physical distance, you are hardly going to be able to actually intergenerationally be together, hear the stories, have a way of passing on information that you had from your parents. We also have issues of the technology and media advancement that some of us are not even advanced in. So then you really get scared, and that takes away the new generation from the old generation, because if you are communicating on media and you are always on your own phones and all of that, transfer of information and the culture and beliefs, it gets lost. In addition to that, many of our young people who are born here or born outside of Rwanda don't speak the language. So transfer of belief, culture in a different language is very, very complicated. And getting the young people to have interest in that is also becomes a problem. You have then the social distancing, which also is a measure of how close as socially you are. We can never be close when we have a barrier of media between the elderly and the young. That has really done a lot of damage. Now, first, so we still have that intergenerational relationship, because many of the young people that come to pass by my side, I find them working very, very hard to still support their loved ones back home. In settlement, that affects how they settle in this country. There is a focus on, I have to help my aunt, I have to help my father, I have to help my mother. For those who have them, I have to help these relatives when they come to this country. And one of the major problems is they don't have time to help themselves. You'll find them working very, very hard as they are sending money home. And many of them have really fallen victims of the fact that they are trying to be intergenerational connected when they are very far from home. The benefit of information and talking to you and being supported by the larger community, you don't have it, but you have to support the people back home And I've seen a lot of people who come here and the settlement becomes a problem because they're trying to solve problems back home. They're trying to work very hard to build a home back home, but they are not going to school. Some of them get compromised. They end up in very difficult situations, particularly for our young female group, because they can be taken advantage of. Males also can be easily taken advantage of, but females, it's a very big deal. I think I'll stop there, and if there are any questions, I can answer some of the questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dan. Maybe just one more question that I would like to add. So in your opinion, how can individuals and the community work together to facilitate an environment that is emotionally and mentally healthy for everyone?
Good question. I think one of the, if we can, these are wishes. If we would have a center where the young and the old can meet, if we had a system of communication, we can use media communication. If we have technology that is friendly to everybody, even the elder like me, so where you would have this center, elder people to come, old people to come and mingle with the young ones, and they have transfer of information in a very simple but friendly way. For example, those days, you will find old people who always say those days. Those days for people who were here during and before the war, we used to be together. We used to have a lot of social gatherings and all of that. That actually brought our communities much more close. And we've lost that. But if we had a place where you would go there, socialize, where our people who are not working and are stuck at home would go out and meet someone there. You'd show them how to work some of the media. They would transfer some of the information that they knew they have. I think that would be something that would be very, very helpful. So easy, we can use the media if we are able to control it. We can use friendly technology that people don't feel scared of and can come in. We could have volunteers go to teach our languages. We could have volunteers just go to classrooms where majority of our children are and talk about issues and transfer some of the information. I think that would be something that would be helpful if we had our own place where we could congregate, meet, go there, socialize, and people would be comfortable to go to. I think that would be helpful.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I hope that, many people who are here who probably are affiliated with organizations that can provide those resources and those spaces are taking notes, because that would be an amazing thing to have. Next person, I will go to Madame Domi. So as a mental health counselor, what is the biggest challenge facing African descent Canadians today regarding intergenerational differences and their impact on mental health?
Thank you so much, Dorian, and thank you to the whole team that has organized this event. Hello, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here to talk about this very important topic, a topic that we don't talk enough about, mental health. Since we are talking about first generation, and not first generation, but generational communities and generational families are very common in our traditional African community. And some of the immigrants who immigrate to Canada are able to actually maintain the tradition. But the challenge is that many people of African descendants who are coming here, came because they were running away from political instabilities back home, conflicts. So they came as refugees. As mentioned a little bit earlier, I work with survivors of trauma, torture, genocide, and crimes against humanity. A significant number of our client population come from the African continent. They have come here as refugees. Some have come alone, others have come with their families. In our own community, the Rwandan community, we have community members who are survivors of the 1994 Tutsi genocide. Some were the only survivors in the family. With that generation, there is already a generation gap. That generation is having children themselves, they are having families. But their children will never have the privilege to know their grandparents. So there is already a gap there. Now, Canada is a very welcoming country, but Canada is not perfect. There was a study done by Statistics Canada on racism and discrimination, and they found that people of African descent, Black people, are more likely to experience racism, discrimination in all areas of social determinants of health. So they are more likely to experience racism in employment, education, healthcare, housing, and so on. For example, Black children, Black youth of African descent, students are more likely to be put in a lower academic program, regardless of the, the abilities, their grades. They are also more likely to be suspended, more likely to be disciplined for same behavior as other kids. Many people of African descent who go through that discrimination and racism don't necessarily report it. They are afraid of, not being believed, so they keep it in. And all that stress and anxiety can cause health and mental health related issues. And to make matters worse, people of African descent are less likely to seek mental health services, as Pierrick was saying, because of stigma and also because of lack of enough Black qualified mental health professionals. I know, so you wanted me to elaborate on something, maybe you can tell me because I don't want to go over. I know that, okay, how?
No, I think you really did give us actually the answer with the examples. So I think that was really fantastic. And eventually we'll come back with you so that you can actually share with us from your career experience over the course of the years, how that has a correlation between that and healing trauma. But for now, I would like to go to Erin. I don't know if Erin can hear me.
Yes, I
Yes,
can hear you.
perfect. Okay, so Aaron, you moved here as a young adult. I would like you to share with us what are some of the most significant intergenerational differences that you have noticed within the African descent communities in your experience, and how have these differences impacted you or our age mates? Because I think me and you are not that far far in age. So yeah, thank you.
So that is definitely a good question. Thank you very much, everyone. My name is Aaron, and yes, as Dorian just said, I came in Canada when I was actually 18. I was coming from Rwanda, but previously had been living in Burundi. I am Rwandese, but born and raised in Burundi. So one of the I would say challenges that I have seen for young adults in our age mates when we move to this country is there is a difference, like Dan said, of information that is passed on from family member to the other. So even the quality, I think, of that sometimes information that is passed on, having a young nation, I would say an underdeveloped country, there is information, I would say, even though for those who were able to stay and maybe had the information passed on to them, when you do move, there's a huge difference in culture, in how things are done, that you basically were not taught. So let's say differences in culture, which include how people carry themselves. Like, for example, let's say Rwandese are more prone to being shy, more reserved. And when you come here, you sort of like want to keep that same culture. And but then you do realize that it doesn't work. So there's a huge, I would say, change that you need to all of a sudden take. So from what you have been brought up in, and now how you realize that you need to change. So that sudden shift, I would say, is definitely something that most people do, I would say, like, have issues with switching or knowing when to switch, knowing to not use the same survival, I would say, method to develop, I would say, for young people. Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much, Aaron. And I have a follow-up question to that. So as a person who experienced that, what would you advise the younger generation of African descent communities who are navigating the challenges of transitioning and the intergenerational relationships currently here in Canada?
Mm-hmm. Yes. I'll definitely say one of the things that I see that would help is, as much as we do love to stay connected and to know what is happening, I would say, from back home where we are, it's also good to get to know, say, navigate the information, the news of the place where you currently are, to be interested in so like right now Canada has done a great job of welcoming all of us. They did a great job on immigration. But when we are welcomed, we do realize that there are other problems that they're facing that we need to work on fixing with them. So these problems affect all of us, like housing prices, which are way out of, I would say, out of the roof. So this is not only affecting the Canadians, but also the people who are here. So I would say, finding information like resources like this, definitely attending events and being active in the community is something that will help you get a boost on integrating with the community.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Now, my next person is Pierrick. I think you mentioned different initiatives that you guys have, programs, which is amazing. And you heard much more about what Mr. Dan said, Madame Domine, from, first of all, their generation, and also their expertise professionally. So you, as a person who grew up here in Canada, but also African descent in the community, what are some of the most important steps that we can take to promote emotional, mental healing and growth among African descent communities?
Yeah, thanks, Dorian. And this question is good because it ties into what a lot of people were saying. What everybody said, like Domain, I'm glad you mentioned to think about having more Black therapists, and even within Bounce Back, part of my role was getting out there, getting the word out to recruit more Black coaches. Because one of the biggest things, like Aaron and Dan mentioned, is community and having people that are around you that look like you, even when you're getting services. So that's the first thing that comes to mind, is just encouraging more people to get involved in mental health, whether it's literally going to school to become a therapist or a program like Bounce Back that all you need is a high school diploma and they'll teach you the rest and train you. Because even for myself, not just youth, but adults, we feel so much better and can open up a lot easier and get help when we relate to the other person on the other end of the phone or in person. And another thing too, we talked about community. I think there's a theme going on now with getting together and having like an actual physical space, because it's a big part of creating a space of a healthy, helpful environment, especially for youth. And we actually have a handout for this that I'll share later on. I think we're going to do email sharing after. It's perfect timing. It's actually strategies on how to talk to youth about mental health. And one of the biggest one is creating an environment where people are safe and feel accepted. And a part of that too, not necessarily just in the space, but just in your day-to-day life, if you have kids or if you are just working with youth, is giving them the permission to feel their feelings. We talked about like cultural differences. Aaron mentioned like there's a more reserved nature back home, and then you come here and it's completely different. And I noticed that too. I was also technically born in Burundi too, but came much younger when I was 4. So I was able to really feel the experience of growing up Canadian. But one issues that we have, even in Canada too, is the inability to feel our emotions. And what's happening with a lot of youth right now is poor self-regulation skills. They have emotions and they don't know what to do with it, so they act out. So we see higher anxiety and depression, and even worse, we see more violence and issues and things really skyrocketing at school. So just starting with that, letting them have permission to feel what they feel, and acknowledging their emotions, acknowledging, I feel like something's bothering you right now. What is it? And like literally labeling it, teaching them how to label their emotions. You look mad, you look sad. It helps them experience it, have their experience and put it into words. And then most importantly is validating their emotions. So understanding, like saying something like, I understand you feel sad because of this that happened to you. And I know this is hard for you that you, didn't make that basketball team. I know it's hard. Not necessarily trying to fix it, not trying to dismiss how they're feeling. That's even worse, but just validating their emotions. And then meeting the need. So for example, being there for support, maybe, let's get a distraction. Let's watch a movie together. Let's take our minds off the situation. It's basically showing comfort. So that's my advice on how to talk to youth and be there for them, whether you have kids or you're just working with youth in general, really creating a safe environment and helping them feel what they feel and feel comfortable. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you. I think you just mentioned something very important. Emotional regulation and validation can make a very big difference in our community because it's not something that is incorporated in our culture. So lastly, I would like to come back to Madame Domine. So I think you mentioned the correlation between intergenerational relationships and trauma. So over the course of your career, I would like you to tell us how or in what ways can we incorporate our traditional cultural practices, values, beliefs into the mental and emotional healing journey while bridging the gap, the intergenerational gap.
Thank you for that. The healing journey will be different for different communities. You see, we are talking now about our African community. We are so diverse. What may work in one community may not necessarily work in the other. But in my professional experience, having a good social support, as Pierrick was saying, and having a safe space for people to express themselves and be heard, you know, is very important, and that's a start. Continuing to have mental health awareness workshops such as these to address the mental health needs of people of African descent can also be very helpful. I can give an example of an association I belong to. I belong to an association called Umurage. Umurage is a women's association whose goal is to promote mental health awareness and to promote our culture. So we regularly organize cultural events that require teamwork between our youth and us grown-ups, you know, and adults. So we very much organize an event. We invite different community members from, you know, African communities, other communities, to keep ourselves, you know, us as a community, we're connected, and also to check in on our youth, to check in on our other members. We also have a regular check-in program for our aging members who may not be feeling very well and who may be having some issues. And that helps. You know, isolation can kill. Isolation is not good for anyone. When you are isolated, a lot of bad things happen. So we need to stay socially connected. We are social beings, we are social animals. So we need to stay socially connected, not only within our community, the Rwandan community, but other communities as well, and specifically other African communities, you know, for mutual support, for networking, and, you know, for belonging. You know, we can learn a lot from one another. Many of us have already talked a little bit about solutions. Dan has talked about having a community center. I don't know if it's just a community center or a community health center, but, you know, having a community center, that would be wonderful. We will get there. You know, we just need to maybe keep working on it. We do have some resources though. For example, Pierrick has a program, Bounce Back. You know, we can encourage our members who may be feeling not great to use, you know, that program. I work at Canadian Center for Victims of Torture, and I run a wellness group twice a year. That wellness group is for people who are survivors of torture, survivors of trauma. It's open for someone. Anyone can attend. Obviously, you have to be a survivor of the trauma and torture. So we do have resources in the community. Just by collaborating, we can find out where the resources are and try to put them together and encourage our community members to use the resources. How are we doing with time?
Oh, we are great. We're doing great. We're doing great. And yeah, did you want to add something? Or
in terms of like, how can we, okay, for example, you see what we are doing now? This is great. I just wish that more people would tune in and, you know, follow workshops such as this one. Because really, I mean, you really then you can you get access to resources in the community. You know where to go if you are not feeling very well, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I want to thank all the panelists because you gave very insightful information and you shared with us your expertise and your experiences. So thank you so much. So now we're going to have some questions. If anyone has a question, you can raise your hand and unmute. Or if not, you can also send the questions in the chat. I'm gonna give it a few minutes. If anyone has a question, feel free to raise your hand if you can be able to unmute and ask or send the question in the chat. So in the meantime let's see. Yeah, in the meantime that we're waiting for questions, I have a question for all the panelists. It's a personal question, but I think many people might maybe someone else has another question, a similar question like mine. So in your opinion, what do you think is the importance of a program like Black Mental Health Week in our communities? So maybe you can start with Madame Domine.
Okay, can you, sorry, I was reading in the chat, I'm so sorry. Okay.
Oh, no, it's all right, I can repeat. So in your opinion, what do you think is the importance of a program like Black Mental Health Week in our communities?
Okay, so this is our communities, especially, okay, so if I talk about the Rwandan community, then the African community. In our Rwandan community, we do have people who have experienced trauma and a lot of trauma. And I know that it's not only in the Rwandan community, it's in other African communities as well. Those people, some of them, they seek help or they may talk about it. Others may not. They just keep it to themselves. And when you keep something like that to yourself, what is it doing to you when you don't talk about your mental health? You keep it in, you know, you experience the stress and the anxiety and it stays in. So that's not good for you. That can create health and mental health issues. So we do need to talk about not only the mental health of African people, Black people, but we need to do it regularly. So, you know, so we have this week now for Black mental health. As I was saying before, it's not that other communities don't experience other things when they get here, because they do. But for us, we have other added issues that happen to us. We are most likely to experience discrimination and racism. And racism and discrimination has been deemed as a public health issue. It's a mental health issue. So we need to talk about it.
Okay, perfect. I will go directly to Pierrick because I think there's a question for you in the chat. What's the difference between a coach and the therapist?
Yeah, good question. So that's probably about what I talked about earlier with bounce back. So for anybody who saw it, there was a slide that I talked about where, so bounce back, you get the help of a coach who works with you and kind of supports you in the program. But I made it clear that if you join the program, you're not getting a therapist. And so the difference, to answer your question, between a coach and a therapist, if you think of a therapist, you're going into more detail about your, depending on what you're dealing with, like if it's narrative therapy, you're going into more and more details about your childhood, maybe past traumas, like very deeper and more, I guess you could say, psychological about your background. In this case, like I gave the example for a coach, it's really about the specific scenario you're dealing with right now and how you can overcome it. because bounce back, it's self-guided work. It's motivated on your own. So you're doing most of the work, and then you have a 20-minute session to talk about the exercise. So I gave the metaphor of a coach as almost like a soccer coach, or I like to use like a personal trainer. They're just kind of there on the side, letting you know how your form is, what weights to use, quote unquote, and making sure you're on the path to success. So it's really based off of kind of practical information, but I take this as something like an introduction to therapy. So if you do like the bounce back program and you feel comfortable, because you are still kind of opening up to your coach, then you can go into something more, I guess you could say, intensive as therapy and going to deeper subjects about your past. But think of it more as something current, whatever you're currently dealing with, and using practical tools. That's what a coach is compared to a therapist.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So unfortunately, because time is really going by so quickly, I think when people are having great conversations, that's what happens. We'll just go back to Nadia, and if there is more time at the end of the entire program, she might come back to Aaron and Dan for the question. Again, I want to thank all the panelists. Thank you so much. Back to you, Nadia.
Thank you very much, Dorian, and everyone on the panel. I'd like to thank you for providing us with insight and for highlighting the cultural and community-oriented healing and growth that we need in order to have a viable mental health. There was a comment from the Rwandan-Canadian Health Center for comment.med saying that we hope to have something in the very near future regarding a cultural center that provides community for Rwandans living in big cities so that they can have somewhere they can go to for support and during their free time so that they're not isolated. All right, jumping into our next segment. It is titled Information on How to Benefit from Community Support, Being Well as an African Canadian in Canadian Society. It will be presented by Ms. Juliet Opoku. She is a health and wellness educator. Juliet is a registered nurse with many years of experience. She is a full-time certified diabetic educator and certified bariatric educator at Unison Health and Community Services, and a health promoter specializing in chronic illness management through her health and wellness company, Living a Balanced Life Incorporated. Ms. Juliet, you have the stage. Is Juliet Opoku?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You have this.
Okay, great. So I'm on my way home from another event, but I'll start. And then when I get home, I can share my screen. So once again, thank you so much for Pizido for putting this together because as we all know, it's very important. Mental health is a big taboo in our community. So anytime there's any kind of event like this, I would like to, of course, participate because mental health happens to everybody, right? There's no discrimination when it comes to mental health. And I've heard the rest of the panel talk about all the different aspects of mental health and how we can better ourselves as Africans living here when it comes to mental health. So my focus always is to bring it to a light where mental health is not separate from other chronic illnesses that we manage or that we see in the community, right? Because mental health in the Ghanaian community, in the African community, is something that we like to associate as it's not existing, but it does exist, and people don't always feel comfortable talking about it. For example, if someone has cancer or diabetes or other illness, they're able to share that with their with people. They're not ashamed of it, as opposed to if it's a mental health condition, right? Usually, if it's a mental health condition, most people don't want to say it because they don't know how people will perceive it, how people will think of them. And when I get home and I share my screen, I'll show you a picture of what I think of when I was younger, what I think of when I thought of someone has a mental illness, right? We see a person that's disheveled, that doesn't look healthy, hair is messed up, they're living on the roadside, begging for food. That's the picture that came in my mind as a younger person growing up in Africa, someone with mental health. But we know now that mental health is not that, right? It can come in so many forms. There's different, just like there's different chronic illnesses out there, same thing with mental health. For example, I like to always relate it to a condition that most people can appreciate. For example, diabetes is a chronic illness in that's very prominent. In Canada, the numbers rising, especially after COVID hit. We realized that, a lot of people being at home, not exercising, the stress level, all of that led a lot of people to developing pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes happens because there's hormone imbalances, right? So a person would develop diabetes because their body's not able to make enough insulin to deal with the glucose or sugar load that comes in from food or other means, right? So that's how a person develops diabetes, because they lack the hormone that produces enough insulin. But similar thing happens when somebody has other mental health issues. So for example, someone will develop mood disorder because they don't produce enough serotonin. Serotonin is also a hormone that's in the body, right? And dopamine is also a hormone in the body. And these hormones, when the imbalances are there, that's when we see the diagnosis happening. So same thing applies. So if someone develop diabetes because they're lacking insulin, and someone develop, let's say, anxiety disorder or depression or schizophrenia or seasonal affective disorder or all the other mental illness that are out there because of a hormone imbalances, then why is it that we're so afraid to speak up, right? Because of the stigma. So there's a lot of stigma that's associated with mental health when it comes to, and I'm getting out of the car, so. So you're getting all the action. So it's very important that everything that we do.
I'm sorry, Juliet, we can't hear you. Juliet, we can't hear you. Juliet, we cannot hear you.
As Miss Juliet is getting back to us, I would like to read some of the comments that were left by our participants. Miss Aisha said, most Black women are working too hard, which is depriving their children from getting that emotional attachment. Religion is also becoming mental tougher to our children, loss of identity for a Black generation, as well as financial challenges. And she commented also on Pierric's emotional regulation mention, the practical ways to introduce these responses to our children and youth who may be experiencing emotional dysregulation. Another comment came from Madame Christine Gahongirwa. She was commenting to Domine and said, bravo Domine to mention Umurage. Yes, we try to stay socially connected. I can add that approaching Umurage members will help to feel a sense of family at large. Elders will learn from younger generation and our youth will learn elders too. And this is a good moment to highlight Umurage Association, because it is a cultural group that is in Toronto that I myself joined when I got to Toronto, where the elders and the young people can interact freely, learn to dance Kinyarwanda, learn more about our culture. So if you or your kids would like to join, just contact Madame Christine or any of us so that we can connect you. And they're very welcoming, as she said. So thank you very much, Madame Christine, for sharing. And as well as Mugisha Rutembesa, he also was highlighting that Umurage Association is a very powerful social support and networking out of intergenerational group. Yeah.
I'm back.
Oh, welcome back, Juliet. Please take it away.
Thank you. Sorry about that. As soon as I hit home, the internet disconnected. But anyways, like I was saying, in terms of mental health, there is a lot of resources out there. I know all the other panels have talked about all the different resources that are out there. And sometimes because for language barriers, because of other barriers that we may have as Africans, it actually prevents us from seeking the help that we need, right? So I just want to put it out there that there are lots of resources that are out there. For myself, I put myself in the community to be able to, for anybody to connect with me if they're going through any kind of mental challenge, right? Because it happens. We do have other challenges that makes us more vulnerable, let's say, compared to the other population. For example, as Africans, relocating, just the act of relocating to a new place alone has a lot of, can cause a lot of stress on a person. right? And also we deal with discrimination, like other panels have talked about discrimination and all of that. So when we're here, and then the financial challenges come in, raising our kids, the language, all of that, it's a lot of layers that can put a person, let's say, that has family history of any kind of mental illness on edge, that can push them over to developing, any kind of chronic mental illness. And remember, all of these has genetic predisposition. So just like someone has diabetes because they have a family history of diabetes and it increases their risk, same goes with mental health. If someone has a family member with mental health issue, that doesn't mean they're going to get diagnosed, or they're going to get any mental health, but it increases their risk. So we have to be mindful of all those things. And as I always say, as parents and as community leaders, we have to be mindful that, and know that, you know what, we have to look out for each other. Because I remember one of the panelists saying that we are social beings. We are social beings. Isolation kills. Isolation is a situation that can push a person over. Someone that could, let's say, going through any kind of illness could survive. When they're isolated, their chance of dying from that illness increases, right? So we know isolation kills. So we don't want people that are going through mental health issues to be isolated, because usually people are suffering in silence. They're going through it. They don't know how to communicate their issues with other members in the community because they're scared of being judged, right? So we want to our goal here is to normalize mental health, just like any other chronic illness, right? If someone has, like I always use diabetes, if someone has diabetes, they're taking insulin because they need that's the hormone that's missing, that's causing them to have high blood sugars. So because of that, they need to put the insulin there, or they need to take medication that helps their body make more insulin so they can manage the diabetes, right? And be able to utilize and manage their health. Same thing goes with mental health, right? We always look at the holistic approach of mental health illness. So when I'm in my practice, I look at diet, I look at people exercise, I look at the support system. So you look at the whole person. And then if all that is put in place and if the person still need help, then medication comes in. So I don't want us to refrain from thinking that, because it's a mental illness, we don't have to talk about medication. Or if you're taking medication, that means that you are, your mental health is more serious, or you're, quote unquote, crazy. That's not it, right? The hormone imbalances are there for mental health. So when those are there, in order for it to be fixed, you need to take medication that can help you normalize that, right? So if somebody has low dopamine or low serotonin and they have depression, they can use all the good lifestyle management, which is exercising to boost their serotonin level. They can eat healthy to make sure that that's controlling their stress. Those are all important. But it comes to a point where a person needs medication in order to make sure that everything is normalized, so they can go back being their healthy self, right? So it's very important that whatever we do, we let people know that, if someone comes to you, confiding you, I'm going through this, that you refer them on if you're not sure what to do, but get the help you need. So if you're someone that's out there, please, and you're going through any kind of mental stress, and usually because we all know ourselves better than anybody else. Like I know myself better than my doctor or any practitioner that can work with me. So if all of a sudden you're not able to sleep, all of a sudden you're losing a lot of weight, or you're gaining a lot of weight, not because you're overeating, but that's happening, or you're losing weight not because you're restricting your diet, but it's happening. You have skin rashes, you have muscle, tightness, tension, extreme headaches. All these are ways. So symptoms are ways of our body telling us that something is wrong, right? So whenever the symptomology is there, it's important for us to follow up, because I know, especially as women, we can attribute those symptoms into anything, like, oh, it's because of that, it's because of, it could be, we can even say it's because of my period, because anything, we can attribute it. But if you know that all of a sudden you're not able to sleep, and you're gaining weight, you're losing weight, all these things are happening, but there's no particular reason, then you need to look into how is your mental health, because those are all symptoms. Mental health is very physical as well. So you might feel the mental tension, you might feel, anxious, your heart may be racing. These are all signs of anxiety and all the other chronic mental illness. But also it can manifest in a physical appearance where you can get, you're easily getting rashes on your skin. All of a sudden, mood swings. These are all muscle tension. You can't sleep. These are all ways our body's telling us that something is wrong. And usually when that's happening, that means our stress level is also elevated, because mental health is highly associated with stress. And whenever our body is under stress, that is when our body goes into the flight or fight mode, where hormones are being released. So if somebody's it's anxious, now their heart rate is racing, their blood pressure is going up, their cholesterol will start to go up. So all these mental health issues can manifest into our cardiovascular health, so our heart health. It can manifest into developing diabetes. It can manifest in developing arthritis, because mental health, just like any illness, can weaken our immune system, right? So we have to be very mindful and not take mental health separate from physical health. Because if your mental health is good, then it'll impact your physical health. That will also be good. Just like if your physical health is not well, it can impact your mental health. So using an example of somebody that's going through any kind of chronic illness, there's a mental health aspect that's associated. Now you're worried about maybe the complications of the disease. So if it's diabetes, the eye disease, the heart disease, the foot amputation, all of that are things that people worry about. So sometimes someone has a physical illness, but it can affect your mental health in a way that can cause them to develop certain kind of mental illness. So we have to be mindful of all of that. That if someone approaches us, if we have our family members, we know how they are. If we see the way that they're acting, all of that is a little bit different than their usual self, it's a good idea to approach them, because sometimes people don't even realize that they're going through these things. They don't realize it yet. And first step of managing any illness is realizing that the issue is there, right? So we have to be very mindful. We have to support each other, check in on each other, make sure that we know we're each other's keepers, because if I'm well, then I'm able to function well, then I can do what I'm supposed to do to contribute to the society, help in any way I can. If I have a mental illness and it's stopping me from doing the best that I can, it doesn't help me, it doesn't help my family, then it goes to the community and the society. So we have to be very mindful that everything we do has a domino effect. Like one gets better, the other one gets better. The same thing. If it gets worse, one gets worse, the other one gets worse. So we have to be very mindful. And so I've talked about some of the warning signs. So the warning signs are always there. So if you see, and especially parents, being the vice president of the Ghanaian-Canadian Association, I've been exposed to or been called to deal with a lot of issues where suicide is real, right? Suicide is something that's happening, and it's happening in our younger population. So, once again, that's people suffering in silence. There's a lot going on. They don't know how to channel that energy. They don't know who to go to. Sometimes they don't even know what's happening. So if you have children or you work with the youth and you see, or anybody, and you see there's changes in their mood, in the way they interact with others, you see they're changing in the interest of what they used to like, and all of a sudden they're isolating themselves. Those are all warning signs that something is wrong. So it's good to approach those people, because sometimes just doing that alone, let people know that they're not alone, that someone actually cares about them and knows what's happening, right? Because a lot of the times people suffer in silence, and then it can unfortunately lead to the disaster end where they will take their life, or the mental health will be so deteriorated that it takes a lot of rehabilitation to bring them back, right? So the early warning signs are there. There's lots of support, like other panelists have said, in the community. There are now, all mental health institutes are trying to be culturally informed. So if you are anybody, or anyone that's going through something, you can connect them. Start with your family doctor, right? Start with your family doctor, start with your social worker, anybody that you, as a clinician that you're in contact with, you can approach them. And then from there, they can refer you to the right person to help you, right? Because just like if somebody has heart disease and they see a cardiologist, if somebody has a mental health issue, they'll see a psychiatrist, or they see a psychologist, or they see a social worker or mental health nurse, right? Seeing those practitioners doesn't mean that you're crazy or your mental health is more serious. It's a powerful first step that you are taking care of yourself, that you are try to be in charge of your health, because at the end of the day, that's what matters. We need to be in charge of our health, know what's happening to us, and then seek the help out there, because we don't want anybody to be suffering in silence, right? So, and then for us as as spectators or as supporters, if you see someone going through something, please reach out to them, connect with them. If they don't feel comfortable talking to you, then connect with any community members, community leaders. They'll be able to navigate and help you through, help the person through the resources that they need, right? There's crisis lines that are out there that you can tap into, and I can share all that. I'll put all of that in the chat later on that you can tap into, right? But always, just like anything else, checking with your family doctor, checking with your nurse practitioner, checking with your mental health nurse, anybody that you connect to as a clinician, because mental health is also part of taking care of ourselves, right? And just because someone is diagnosed with mental health illness doesn't mean that they can be a productive part of society, right? And if you're not diagnosed with mental health doesn't mean you have great mental health, right? So mental health or being diagnosed with mental illness doesn't mean that you can have great mental health, right? Just like someone could have a chronic illness like heart disease and still be very healthy because they're taking care of themselves. Same thing goes with mental health. You can have a mental illness, but still be mentally healthy because you're taking all the steps to make sure that you're controlling your stress, you're eating healthy, you're exercising, and taking your medication as prescribed to all in combination to help you manage whatever condition that you have. So I'll just end it here. And then if anybody has anything, any questions, I'll gladly take that. But let's please help each other survive. Let's hold each other's hand. Let's be each other's keepers and keep an eye on each other, because once again, the taboo is there. People don't want to talk about it because the stigma of, being isolated, being called crazy and all of that. And we need to change the narrative and normalize mental health as a part of any other illness that's out there that anybody can go through, right? Because genetics plays a role, our environment plays a role, what happens to us, unfortunately plays a role. So it's the combination of everything, all different factors that can cause a person to develop mental illness. Okay, so I'll leave it out here and then we'll take any questions. And I'm sorry I couldn't share my screen, but the computer at home have its own mood disorder. This afternoon it's not working well. So I'm here if anybody have any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Joliet. Your presentation highlighted something very important, the oneness and intersectionality of mental health and our physical well-being. They are one and same. And it was once remarked to me how in our language, the word for health and for life are the same word, ubuzima. So our life and our health it's ongoing. As we leave, we take care of ourselves. As we leave, we must know that mental health is not something that we take care after work. No, we take care of our mental health as we go through work, as we interact with our people, as we rest, as we eat. Taking care of ourselves is a continuous thing. So it's not something that we put off for later. So I wanted to really highlight that. And another thing that she talked about is asking for help. And it's not very easy, like she said. It's not always the easiest thing for someone to come up to you and say, I'm having a hard time. So let's be there for our people. We're preaching community here. There's a story that really stuck by me that a person was going through grief and had to move. So for that reason, they did not have the strength to unpack. They lived around boxes, and that was also, affecting them mentally as well, because they're in a place that doesn't feel like home, and they're also dealing with grief. So their friends decided to show up one day, help her like clean around, unpack the things, and she had a home, a place where she can finally grieve her loved one who just departed. So I just want to say that if you have the opportunity to show up for someone, please do it, because people don't always feel very comfortable asking for help. So thank you very much, Ms. Joliet, for highlighting that as well. That was very powerful. So we are in the Q&A section. You can use, I'm sorry, someone still has their mic on. If you could please mute yourselves.
I do believe that is Juliet connecting to a computer.
Oh, okay. All right. She can just mute one of them.
I logged out. I think that was me. I finally logged on my computer. So I think my phone was doing the echoing. Yeah, sorry about that.
I don't see many questions. I see mostly comments throughout your speech. People were commenting, for example, Mugisha Rutembesa said, well said, Juliet, stigma creates a barrier to seeking help and further hinders access to resources to support the well-being of those affected by mental health disorders. So it is very important that our people know it is okay. It is okay. There's a song that says, it's okay not to be okay.
That's
So
right.
just as long as you know that what is happening to you is not the end of the world, and that it has happened before and you can get better from it. Yes. We're
right.
still in
And
the
I finally can share my screen. I
Please
can
go
finally
ahead.
share my screen. So I just wanted to show this. I don't know, can everybody see my screen? Can you see my screen?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Yeah. You see that person? I just wanted to show that picture because growing up in Africa, I relocated to Canada when I was 14. And growing up in Ghana, when I saw a person like that, that was mental health, right? But we know now that mental health could be dressed in so many different forms, right? I could be sitting here educating and talking about it, but I could be going through my own mental health issues, just like any other health issues. So I really, really want to put it out there that, you know what, mental health, because whatever is happening here affects everything else that's in our body, everything else, right? So we have to be very mindful that we don't have to see someone that's disheveled and look like this for us to go and help them, right? Check on each other, be each other's keepers, because it happens. We as Africans go through a lot of issues in terms of discrimination, and all that impacts our mental health. Our kids growing up, and then, like, for example, I have my nephew who's 20 years old, and when all these things was going on about, you know, the police brutalities and being discriminated against, I mean, we think it's nothing, but it does a number to our mental health. So for me to sit there and talk to my nephew at the time that's 18, that, you know, if you were to pull, a police were to pull you over, this is what you do. I mean, mentally, it does something. It made me nervous. It made me anxious. And all of these are part of our mental health. So all of that intertwined. So our current circumstances, and then take into in consideration our family history, all can move a person to developing different kinds of mental health. And I'm putting this picture out there because everything that happens to us in terms of physical health affects mental health, and mental health affects physical health. And I want you to understand that when you're going through stress is something that we don't talk about a lot, but that leads to a lot of the physical health that we go through now, and a lot of the mental health that we go through now. So for example, if someone is going through, I don't know, let's just say they can't sleep because they're stressed about, you know, family issues from back home or here or whatever, what have you. Because they can't sleep, our body internalizes that as stress. When our body is stressed, guess what it does? It releases stress hormones. And what these stress hormones does is it causes our blood sugars and our blood pressure and everything to go high. So if you become, and remember, and you know, a little bit of stress is needed for us to function, to meet deadlines, all of that's normal. But when the stress becomes chronic to a point where our body's under constant stress, where hormones are constantly being released, it's making our blood pressure go up, it's making our blood sugar go up, it's making our cholesterol go up. As you can imagine, that could affect our overall health in terms of cholesterol, our heart health, our kidney health. Any organ in our body is affected by stress, because when stress happens and the levels are high, sugar is in your blood, and wherever blood goes, the sugar goes with it, right? So it can cause damages in our body. So if somebody's going through mental stress, same thing's happening, right? They don't have enough hormones that's dealing with the, you know, the mental alertness and all of that. So when someone's going through, this is what's happening in their body. And because this is what's happening, it weakens your immune system. When your immune system weakens, you become even more vulnerable to other illnesses, right? So everything we do is intertwined. We have to think of it that way. So that when somebody is going through something, please, we have to help each other. We have to be the advocate. We have to go out there. And same goes with our kids. I'm a mother of 4. We have to look out for our children. When kids are going through, they might not even know what all this means, right? They might be angry. They don't know why they're angry. They might be stressed. They don't know why they're stressed. So checking in with them, talking to them, it's all ways of making sure that we're taking care of ourselves, and also making sure that the next generation knows about mental health, and not to think that, you know what, when you see somebody like this, is only when you help them, right? That mental health comes in many, many, many different forms, right? Because the suicide rate is high among the Africans. I don't know about the African communities, but I know in the Ghanaian community, especially when COVID hit, there was a lot going on in terms of kids taking their lives as young as 15, 16, taking their lives, right? And when that happens, it affects the whole family, right? That also in itself bring other mental health issues for the family because now they have to deal with all of that. So please, let's be each other's keepers. The help is there. The warning signs are there. You know how our family members are. We know how we are, right? So when things are different, let's seek the help that we need because everything that affects our mental health will in turn also affect our physical health and not for the good. So let's try our best to do what we can. And everything we do, medication comes in, how we manage our health, nutrition comes in, exercise, all of that has benefits, right? And today I know it's not that we don't have that much time, but next time maybe we can go dive into all these other areas that can help improve someone's mental health, not just medication alone, but looking at their diet, looking at their stress level, looking at their physical activity level, all of that can work together to improve our mental health because we want this to be not a quick fix, right? Not like, oh, Julia eat vegetables for a week and then her mental health is good. It's something that we need to incorporate into our regular routine, normal living to benefit us, right? So then we become a good example for our children and people around us. So it becomes a chain reaction in a positive way to help all of us in terms of mental health. So I'll end it here. I talk too much, I know. I'll leave it here for you guys to ask questions if anybody has questions.
Anybody has questions, you can
So
submit them.
these are some of the places that people can get help.
Right. There was one question from the RCHC Center saying, within homes, families, and community, how do we make sure to help our children safely without worrying about the stigma, creating a safe space for them?
Yeah. So same thing, right? Just making sure that you are in communication with your children, right? Especially when they reach, become teenagers. They don't necessarily come to you as the mom, right? You might not be their first, that you're there for them. It might not seem like they appreciate it, but going back to them, are you okay? Is there anything I can do? I've realized, and let them know, I've realized lately, you don't come out of your room as much. I realized lately you're not really enjoying the things that you used to enjoy. You're not doing that anymore. Is there anything that's happening? Is there something that's happening at school? They might not tell you right away. They might look at you with that really weird look because, teenagers think they know everything. They're better than us. But the fact that you're going at it and the fact that you're constantly present, make them realize that you're there for them. And then eventually, right? So it's never like you go to your teenager and say, oh, what's going on? And then they blub everything to you. Some might, but most of them wouldn't because they don't know. Most of the time, they don't even know what's happening to them, right? So you approaching them that you've noticed something is wrong and starting the conversation that way is a good start. And then say, you know what, I don't know what to do. Let's go see, let's go see the doctor. And then when you go to, and when you're in the presence of the clinician, you don't always, as a mom, have to be there, right? I think we have to show our kids trust. So for example, removing yourself so the child can talk to the practitioner alone is a good start. That you're there to support them no matter what, right? So it's not for you to just eavesdrop and know what's going on for your own whatever, but you want them to be well and by any means necessary. So sometimes I know as Africans, we're very involved, and when we're parents, we're very involved parents. We want to know everything that's happening to our children, and that's fine, but sometimes we need to give the space for them to also have their privacy to be able to discuss what's happening because they might not feel 100% comfortable with that. But just checking in on them constantly, and talking to them is a good start. And then, walking with them to the clinician or anybody that can help them is a good start. So they can be able to navigate and learn that, what, something is wrong. Maybe I'm not in this alone. So this is and usually when they see the clinician, they normalize things for them. Like, you're feeling this because you're going through anxiety. You're feeling this because you're going through depression, or this is what's happening, because of that. So they'll be able to connect all those things that's happening. And usually when people understand what's happening to them, then treatment can be effective, right? So just keep checking in with the kids, keep checking in with family members and let them know that you've noticed the difference. And that's a good first step to start to work from there. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Juliet. You actually pinpointed privacy for children in African households. And that is a foreign concept because for a lot of us, what is privacy in your parents' house, you know? So it is important that for future generations of parents that they understand that around certain levels or like around certain phases of life, they must let off a little bit so that their kids can feel free to discuss what's happening to them. We have a comment from Jackie saying, thanks everyone for today's session and contributions. Raising awareness and destigmatizing mental health will require strong engagement by the community and members who are involved in mental health services to intentionally work together, engage the community and policy. Thanks to Juliet for the emphasis on normalizing mental health as something that can affect everyone. So thank you very much, Juliet. This brings us to the end of this segment. Thank you so much for your intervention. This is actually bringing us to the highlight of organizations that participated in putting together this event. If you have any programs that you would like to take us part in, or if there's something that you'd like to highlight, this is the time. Please, you can unmute your microphones for the ones who are on the panel, and you can also use the chat box in order to highlight some of your organization's programs that provide community. I can, for one, speak for CARY Toronto, which is the Canadian Association for Rwandan Youth. And we are a community-oriented group that provides resources for young Rwandans living in the greater Toronto area by educating them, networking, providing networking environment, and also getting together, you know, being there for each other, having friends. When I was new in Toronto, I made use of, you know, the networks I made in CARY Toronto in order to survive being new in a big city. I know Aaron can say much more about it. Aaron, would you like to say something about CARY?
I think you definitely said it all. It's definitely a youth organization. It's the name CARY actually means Canadian Association of Rwandan Youth. It has, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 chapters. The first one began in Ottawa and the second one in Toronto. Yeah, so we are active in the community and still looking to we're just actually getting started. I think coming from grassroots to a more organized organization. And we should expect to hear from us, I think, more in this year as we are getting ready to start our events and basically retake what we had before COVID hit.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Pierrick also highlighted the Bounce Back program, so please take advantage of it. There is a link in the description box, in the chat box, but also a follow-up email will be sent by the Rwandan-Canadian Healing Center. So please be on the lookout for it. We highlighted Umurage Association by Madame Christine Gahongayire. So please reach out to her, or if you don't have a chance to reach out to her, you can reach out to us, the Rwandan-Canadian Healing Center, CARY Toronto, and we can direct you to them. I don't know if I'm missing any other organization before I hand over to Kizito for a closing remark.
And maybe I will continue thanking our partners on this that helped us to bring this event together. Obviously, the Rwandan-Canadian Healing Center, our team, our board members, I'd like to thank them as well. The Ghanaian Canadian Association of Ontario, you saw Juliette is a member of the Ghanaian Association. She's actually the vice president of the organization there as well. I've been working with them on various programs, but we also work together on this event. Beyond the Veil, of course, we thank Beyond the Veil for, you know, we worked together on this event last year. We were able to do this again this year, and it went incredibly well. So thank you to Beyond the Veil. And specifically, I'd like to thank Lydia for leading the call. Of course, the CARY Toronto, you guys are incredible. I am a part of CARY Toronto as well, by the way. I'm a board member on CARY, so the incredible community family experience that we have is really beautiful, and I'm loving this. Umurage Association, as always, thank you. Next year, we hope to have the event in person so we can have more of our cultural experiences, have people dance, have people share different of course, share a meal and all that. So definitely, we couldn't do it this year, but we definitely would love to do it in person next year. So I would like to also thank our panelists and our presenters. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you, Nadia, doing incredible work. Love your.
We cannot hear you properly. Sorry.
Okay, now, okay, I think I just turned this why you can hear me. I wanted to say I want to thank you, Nadia, for leading this event, for wonderful, incredible emceeing work you did. And we will always come back to you, so thank you. Thank Dorian, thank Pierrick, thank Dan and Min for being on our panel. Of course, Aaron as well. We really, I think one of the things we wanted to accomplish, and obviously this is just the beginning, is begin to have intergenerational, multi-generational conversations around mental health, but also around community. Like, I think a lot of our challenges can be met if we have these conversations, not just at that one level of generations, but intergenerationally, multi-generationally. And I think this is what we are beginning and hope to continue to do this. And it's not possible without this collaboration that you saw today. So we really appreciate all of you, all our partners, all our speakers, of course, the City of Toronto for continuing to push this effort. Obviously, this year was through Taib Community Health Center. We really thank both, and there are other partners that have come together to continue these discussions around mental health. And the other thing I wanted to maybe share, as I believe we're in the announcement phase, is so we talked about some of the things that we need, and I want to echo Dan, who talked about creating space creating a space for people to meet and connect. Right now, the Rwandan-Canadian Healing Center has a space where we have made it available, and a lot of our community members have taken advantage of it. And I see the I will allow you to share it. I see you raise your hand. We have the space that community members can come to and use for meetings, for discussions like this. We have podcast space. We can record podcasts for you if you're interested. We really want to open the space for people to share stories, to connect. And obviously, the other thing we had wanted to launch is a crisis call center. We have yet to launch it, but we hope to have something like that within the next year. And then the other program, which you might have seen recently in the news, is a project that we are doing with our other community partners, including the Ghanaian Association, CARY Toronto, and another, as a part of a Rwandan collective. We have the Nigerian group, we have a Kenyan association with us, and another group from Eritrea, where we are looking to build a model. We are creating a model right now that I honestly believe it's almost like we've been listening to all of you, because everything you mentioned as a solution to mental health, we have been talking about in our lab, about creating connection, creating space where we can actually be, as we are used to as Africans, connecting each other at different levels, different ages. So we're looking at creating a community, we call it a village, that can actually house all of these spaces, whether it's centers, community centers, recreation centers. So that's coming up, or we're hoping to launch the model in June, and then work towards actually building the center, building the affordable housing. Within the affordable housing, we are definitely going to have those centers, those community centers, various things that our community members need. So we are looking forward to that. I think maybe if you don't mind, Nadia, you can also go back around the table and see if there is other people that might have some things coming up in the community. And I want to start with Min, and then pass it to you, Nadia.
Oh, okay, thank you, Kizito. No, I just wanted to add, since we have highlighted Umurage, we are organizing a Women's a Mother's Day party in May, and we are inviting all of you.
Nice.
Looking forward to seeing all of you. So you will be seeing the invitation in the mail.
Even the men are invited?
Yes. Of course. Yeah, we are inviting the men. Yes, absolutely.
Do we know what's the date?
May 20th. Is Christine still here?
Yes.
Yeah, she is. Yeah, May 20th.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, May 20th. Yes.
Everyone is
Amazing.
invited.
Looking forward to it.
Sounds good.
All right. And I also saw that by the end of this month, Umurage is starting Kinyarwanda classes for kids aged 6 to 12 years old, and also has dance classes going on. So if you know anyone who's interested, please approach Umurage Association.
And they can be from any African community.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Very good.
That's incredible. Yeah, so really, so if you have anything that's coming up, this is the next couple of minutes you can definitely share. And the other thing I wanted to maybe say as we close is, I want to go back to thanking the city and Tayyip, especially the confronting anti-Black racism unit that which I've been working with in the last year and a half, or maybe the last 2 years, for allowing these conversations to take place, because I think, as you have seen, there is an interest for community members. There is an interest from every place, every angle you look at. And I think having the city or whomever the party might be to boost us into having these conversations is really incredible. So I want to thank the organization, the Confronting Anti-Black Racism Unit there at the City of Toronto. I also want to thank the City of Toronto. And I really want to encourage us to continue to have these conversations, to really know that these kinds of, when you talk about mental health, anybody can improve. And this is what I was saying from earlier. And I love something Juliet said about medication. Previously, when I recovered from my trauma, I never really could find anything that could help me medication-wise. But I really believe that it just depends. Sometimes you take something for like a week and you feel terrible. And it's going through that phase of feeling terrible and getting to the other side that I honestly didn't have patience for, but I truly believe that if you're severely affected, you just have to go through that phase, because on the other side, you could find something that works for you. So as we talk about mental health for people who are maybe not as severely affected, if you're severely affected and we're having a conversation about medication, don't be afraid of it. Just make sure that when you're diagnosed, it's the correct diagnosis, because sometimes you can be misunderstood, which is why we're advocating for more mental health practitioners that understand who we are as be Rwandan, be Ghanaian, be African-Canadian. Yeah. And so go ahead.
And I just want to add that what you said, because this goes beyond mental health. So if you are prescribed any medication for anything, and you're taking it and it's not agreeing with you, please go back to the prescribing person and tell them that this is not working. Because remember, our genetic makeup is not the same. Even as one family, we're not the same, right? So what might work for Juliet might not work for Kizito. So if it's not working with you, then you go back to the prescribing MD and then discuss what else is there. Because there's so much on the market for you to be suffering. And then one thing that we Africans, we do that I've noticed as a clinician, because I see that a lot, people say, oh, Juliet, I just stopped taking my medication because it wasn't working. But there's implications. When it comes to medication for mental health, for mental conditions, some of these medication needs to be tailored down. You can't just stop them abruptly. And when you do that, you can go through withdrawal. So it's very important to be aware of that sometimes when we stop those medications that we were taking that we think didn't work, because we did it in cold turkey, now our body's going through withdrawal symptoms. And that's very hard on the body and for our mental health. So if it's not working, go back to them, say this is not working, they will look at it, and then find a way to strategize, because sometimes you can stop, but you can't stop it right away. We reduce it to, let's say it was 20 milligrams to 15 to 10 to 5 until your body, you get it out of your system so you can recover properly. So be mindful, and that goes for all medication. Any medication that doesn't work for you, don't take it, please, but be mindful to let the doctor know that you are not taking it, so something else could be looked into for you, because sometimes that can have negative implication on our health. And we are fortunate to be here, so let's just use the system to benefit us. Like, let's not bring some of the things that we back home, how everybody can just go to any pharmacy and just buy any medication. Let's not do that. Let's not take something because Nadia's taking it as working for her, so I'm gonna go take it too. That's not how it works. Everything works with your body, your system, your organs, how your everything, how your internal body is working. And that's how we prescribe medication, to make sure that you're taking things for you, prescribed for you, not because somebody else is taking it. And if it doesn't work, go back and get it reassessed, please, 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 please.
Thank you. With those words, I would like to say one last word as we close. Be yourself, be true to oneself, take advantage of your mental health and create wellness within the community. Do not think mental health is, for me, I began looking at mental health as a gift about almost 8 years ago. And honestly, it's the best thing I've ever done, because one thing I've realized is once you have there are certain mental health challenges that you have, they're just with you forever. And if you start looking at it from a gift angle, there is so much you can do. You can create amazing, incredible things. And I would like to encourage all of you. If you have something that you're struggling with, embrace it, start sharing. It begins at sharing, it begins at talking about it. Whether it's with your close friends, with a professional, someone you trust, just begin sharing. Trust me. It's like day and night from the time you just had everything pumped into you to the moment you decide, you know what, I'm just gonna put it out there. So be true to yourself, take advantage, and be well, and let's build this community together. Thank you so much for everyone for joining us, and we really appreciate you. And yeah, I can't say enough, just incredible. Stay strong.
Thank you, that's awesome.
Thank you to our speakers and thank you to our participants. I hope we have a strong takeaway today. I want to wish you a nice weekend and yeah, be kind to each other. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Yes, take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, Jackie. Bye.
Bye, Julia. Bye-bye. Thank you.